All right. Welcome back to the School of Fish podcast, where we swim alongside top tier and emerging business stars to uncover their unique perspectives on life, business, and the art of business development. Today's episode, we're joined by not one, but two brilliant entrepreneurs, Brad and Spencer Kronthal, the dynamic brother duo and founders of Alloy Sports. Alloy is revolutionizing the world of sports betting analytics by helping users find winning systems in seconds, backed by powerful data-driven insights. In today's episode, we're going to dive deep into the brothers' entrepreneurial journey, unique challenges they're facing, and some wins and challenges that are still lie ahead. So welcome to the show, Brad and Spencer, or Spencer and Brad, whoever's older here.
That'd be me. And thank you very much, John. Excited to be here. Been enjoying working with you since we started months ago. So excited to be on the pod.
Thank you. So maybe just to kick things off, this is our first brother episode. So not every question has to be both, but maybe we'll do a little bit of back and forth. Maybe, Brad, if you want to share a little bit about your background and what led to you guys creating Alloy Sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in live sports production. I knew that growing up, I wanted to be involved with sports in some way. Quickly found out that it wasn't going to be as an athlete. So got into production, journalism, broadcast journalism. And I worked for Masson with the Orioles producing and associate producing for 6 years. And then I moved to the Monumental Sports Network in DC and helped them launch their sports betting show called By the Book, which is now on NBC Washington Monday through Friday. So I came from a background of creative, sports analytics, and sports betting as well.
And then the brains behind the operation. Obviously, we could talk about Spencer and your background. Give a little color on what you've done historically, Spencer, and what brings you to today.
Well, the brains is definitely given a little too much credit, probably a lot too much credit on that. But my background was originally in engineering, studied material science and engineering, then went on to work for Stanley Black & Decker for about 4 years before we really went full-time on Alloy Sports. Essentially how that all came together was taking some of the systems and software that I had used in my day job or at school as a materials engineer and realized that that process of really defining the variables that are important to you works really well for trying to build a custom, personal sports betting system or strategy. So started off building it, kind of remocking the engineering approach on Excel. We were able to get a team around us that could, build the app that we have live today.
And, is betting something that the two of you have been part of ever since you were kids? And if so, were you typically winners or losers when you bet?
So
if I was betting against Brad, I'd be losing, but
sports was always in our DNA growing up. When I went to Vegas, placed a few bets, but really like most people in the United States, especially in the younger demographic, we were getting into betting as soon as it became live when the Supreme Court legalized it state by state in 2018. So once that happened, I had friends in Pennsylvania, which got legalized a lot earlier than where I currently am in Maryland. Now it's legal in Maryland, which is great. But once it became live in 2018 is once we started to dabble in it and get really invested in it. It kind of felt like fantasy, which Spencer and I play on a nightly basis now that it's baseball season. And we really love getting into it on a nightly basis. So ever since it became live and we were ingrained in it, we've been heavily involved.
And when you think about betting analytics, which is really the core kind of technology of Alloy Sports, what is the landscape of betting analytics solutions that are out there for the everyday bettor? And as such, was that really the impetus for launching the company?
Yeah, basically, we wanted to find a solution that we ourselves would use. And there was nothing out there to let us, see how the data actually applies to betting. Obviously, you could go on any site and see the stats for each team, see who's matching up well, but the books know that too. So what we want to do is find or really build an outlet that combines the stats that you can see normally with how it's actually performed for a bet. Are you actually making money? Because the heavy favorite's always, going to win more than a heavy underdog, but it's not necessarily going to be profitable. So we just look to combine game, statistics, sports stats with betting stats and betting data, so you could get the full picture of what's working and what's not for you.
And when you think about the addressable market in the world of sports and sports betting, what's like a number or ballpark in terms of the size of the sports betting industry, let's just say in the United States, if you guys know that?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the betting industry, it's always growing. I think a year or two ago, the handle was about $50 billion. The revenues, are going to be a fraction of that. But, it's something that's consistently growing. We have just over 30 states that are legal right now. There's about 15, 20 more to go. But betting in the U.S., it's really just scratching the surface. As these states are getting legal, it's, everybody's figuring out what to do. The competition, the market, it's all kind of fizzling and shaping itself together where, what it is today is, going to be a fraction of the size that it could be, even in a couple of years.
And when you guys were kind of exploring different ways to take data mixed with some like betting analytics and strategy and throw it into like an all-in-one platform, what were you ultimately solving for? And when you kind of realized that you had cracked some type of code in what you were developing, what was like that light bulb moment that you knew you were onto something?
I think the goal was self-reliance. People don't want to be dependent upon anyone else. It's kind of like with their other offerings, Netflix. People aren't just looking at the cable schedule and saying, well, 6 o'clock, here comes the movie. I'm going to tune in at 6 o'clock and watch it through. They're going to pick what shows they want to watch, when they want to watch them. Same with music, Spotify. They're not just listening to the radio and just taking whatever is given to them. So with us, we know that the market was heavily diluted with picks, some of them legitimate, a lot of that was not. But we wanted a solution where we could see the numbers and we can trust it for ourselves. Again, I liken it to fantasy space. For us with fantasy baseball, we're looking at prospects every day, streaming pitchers. So we're looking up their numbers, their minor league numbers, to really gauge whether it's someone that we wanted to pick up or not. So with betting and our app, we're able to run our own models. And now with the Alloy app, we run the models for you and tell you the best ones that are hitting. You can kind of gauge whether that's a factor, whether it's 3-point percentage or rebounding or days of rest or home or away teams. If that matters to you and if it makes sense to place that bet, given the sample size. So with us, it's let me see the data myself. Let me make it digestible. And then I can make the bets based off my intuition, not relying on some other random person's picks who I have no idea the process behind how they got there.
And when you communicate with some of the early users on the platform, what's the type of feedback which really validates that what you set out to build is actually being realized and utilized by sports bettors today? Give me some examples of feedback you've heard from some of the early day Alloy users.
Yeah, a lot of them really like the ability to find their own solution, but they wanted to find it quickly. They didn't want to go through these long processes of building a model. And a lot of it's intimidating, right? You talk about, some of the competitors in the market where all they talk about is the data. And they make it really hard because they don't want it to be replicated. They want to have that perfect model where they're pushing people to games. With us, it's kind of like Excel. You can build whatever you want. There's going to be more than one winning model that you can build. But the feedback was really good. I think what we just launched with for the NBA playoffs was heavily built on user feedback, which was, if you build some on your own, I want to know what's hitting, lately. I want to know what's also hitting over a long period of time. But also show me what goes into those systems. So we also have a feature where, we give the system a name, but then we tell you what's in it. If it's 3-point percentage, field goal percentage, and blocks, we're going to tell you high level what's into each system. So you can see right away if a system's 10-2 in the last 2 weeks, here's what goes into it. Here are the games to bet, making it really simple for the user to go in there, digest the content, and then place their bets at a high confidence rate.
I don't know if we're talking about NBA playoffs. We could go a little bit off of Alloy. Did you watch the Miami Heat and Milwaukee game last night? Since we're filming on Tuesday, April 25th.
I was actually at the Orioles game last night. So the Orioles came back to beat the Red Sox. So we were excited about that, being from Baltimore.
As a Knicks fan, we're all excited that Milwaukee is losing the series and the Heat have a chance to win. But a star player scoring over 50 points in a meaningful playoff game is a legendary performance. And with all the analytics in the world, there obviously are those one-off, amazing, unique instances that no system could solve for. And I would imagine you're kind of solving for the masses. You're solving for the most predictable outcomes, as opposed to the stuff that's very niche oriented. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think one thing we're always trying to push is that there's never one game only that you should bet. You want to be betting over time where, like you said, John, kind of the variances, the incredible performances, or even the dud performances kind of average out, over a longer season. So that's always what we're pushing towards, where, if you have a 55, 60% winning strategy, if that's over the course of 2 weeks, maybe there's a momentum game to be played, but really you want to see that over, months, if not longer.
Yeah, I don't know what system would tell you that Memphis was only going to score 9 points in the first quarter a few days ago.
Well said, well said. And when you think about sports that the tool works for, I know you said you started with the NFL and the NBA. From what you've seen or studied, if you look at, let's say, the 4 major sports in America between basketball, football, hockey, and baseball, what does the data say about the volume of betting in each of those sports, from like the most popular sport to bet on in volume to the least popular?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the big four, it's NFL is king. After that, you're looking at baseball and the NBA. NBA, you probably get more bet per game, but baseball, you have double the games for each team each season. NHL is currently the laggard, but doesn't mean there's still not an opportunity there. What's interesting about the 4 sports is, we've really taken a team-based approach at first. And that really works well for NFL, NBA, even the NHL, getting to college sports as well. But with baseball, it's going to be so reliant on individual player stats. That starting pitcher that night, for example, is going to matter so much more than the team's ERA. It's all about finding what are the indicators, what are the stats that matter, and letting our users access that important data.
And how does that flow down when you talk about individual sports, things like PGA golf or live golf, tennis, even ultimate fighting and boxing? What's the paradigm between or this, how does the betting industry look at team sports versus individual sports?
Yeah, I think, when you look at team sport versus individual, it's kind of just having components. Like a team sport, you can break it down into its individual components, whether they matter or not. Obviously, they do matter, but just to the extent of which they do. Like baseball, like I said, very individual. NBA, individual players will stand out. NFL, individual running backs or receivers might not as much as the quarterback. Obviously, when you're looking at an individual sport like a UFC or a tennis or even a golf, it's all about that one person, or the opponent. So it's just the amount of data is probably condensed because you don't have individual and team stats. You just have those individual factors.
I still find it amazing as a Knicks season ticket holder when I go to the games and I see some guys or girls in their 20s, 20 somethings, getting their bets in during the game and at halftime. And it's kind of like the cat's out of the bag when gambling was legalized or went online in a legal way. But I think attending a sporting event and being able to bet on it, just so you have a little bit of extra incentive if you're not a diehard fan of the team, or it's a blowout, or you're rooting for individual players. To me, the experience in person is potentially one of the biggest unlocks down the line in betting, from what I see. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the experience is everything. I think this helps more than just the betting space, but also sports. You've seen some of the longer sports maybe lag with fan interest because, that attention span has gotten so small. Well, betting kind of changes everything, where you don't need to place a lot. You could place $2 to $5 bets on different players or different games, and you're fully invested in that game where you probably wouldn't have watched it before. It doesn't have to be for your team. I know I'm not a huge NHL guy. I placed a couple NHL bets. Suddenly I'm watching full NHL every quarter. So it really does have a nice transition to sports and having people watch them more oftenly and being more engaged. But being at the park and betting on a game is really awesome. I was in DC for the Orioles Nats game last week for a series, and you couldn't bet on your phone there because you have to be right near a sports book or directly in it. So it just felt kind of off, just knowing how normalized it is now, just watching a game and placing a bet mid-game and not being able to do that just felt really wrong.
The live sports betting, I think, is also interesting when Spencer compares baseball having double the games as the NBA. When you look at the ability to live bet versus just game bet, I'm sure, transcends the amount of action or volume that an individual game receives, right? Being able to bet as the game goes on. Is that what you're seeing in kind of being experts in industry?
I think it varies. I think a lot of people are interested in the game. I know for use of our app, when we break it down, if there's a team that's favored to cover and they might be, whether they're a heavy underdog or a close underdog, and they fall down a little more early, so those odds increase for them, that's specifically a game that I usually like to get into, knowing early on that I'm expected to like a team that's going to cover. They fall down. It could just be, let's say it's basketball, by 1 or 2 baskets, they could be down 5-0 in the first 2 minutes of the game. Those odds could go from +4.5 to +7.5. I'll hop in right there because I liked them at 4.5. The first 2 minutes of the game should even out. So it's a really interesting space, one that's definitely immature at the moment, but it's definitely going to mature over the next, couple of years. But as from a fan's perspective, it's really awesome that you can get in at any point of any game. The only thing that's tough to watch is when you're watching a game and you get in on the apps. The apps are always probably like 30 seconds ahead of you, so you might miss a basket or two. So that, from that standpoint, I always try and bet when it's in commercials or something. Otherwise, I miss something and then I get pissed off.
Totally. And I know you have different elements of being entrepreneurs. Is that something that stems from your family, or is that just do both of you consider yourselves entrepreneurs and this made sense to go into together? What's the genesis of becoming entrepreneurs the way that you're approaching it today?
I think it's interesting. It was something I think that was, you could say, was back of mind, but wouldn't consider ourselves necessarily before getting into this as fully entrepreneurial. I think we've just we saw an opportunity, we saw something that we were interested in, and we saw something that we thought we could make a difference in. So for us, we're passionate. I think we're stubborn to a fault about continuing to push forward. Where we just wanted to see something to its to its conclusion, to its end. And we saw an opportunity to, have a space that's, one, we're passionate about, and two, that, it actually leverages kind of the skill sets and experiences that we've had, where, working together was easy enough. The day-to-day always gets interesting, just as brothers. But we saw an opportunity and just wanted to keep kind of pushing forward. And that kind of led us down this path.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to work 100%, whether it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, depending on the maturity of the market. That's the tough thing to say, but there is an absolute need for this in the market. And I think for us, being sports guys, being analytical, seeing different markets and spaces where this type of infrastructure is already built and needed, and not available in the sports betting market where people do a lot of research, we just saw a great opportunity. And there's no one smarter in the world that I'd want to work with than Spencer. His credentials back him up, but he's also that type of person. I think we just make a really good environment to work around. But we also don't leave any stone unturned, which is also a good thing. So we can get into good debates, but knowing that we're brothers, I think it's a real advantage for us. Whereas, we're not going to let anything that doesn't make sense fly. But it's been a really fun ride, and, we're working our butts off every day to get this as good as we can for people that want to use it.
Totally. And I think when you do these recordings, they hopefully will stand the test of time, right? We put it out there. We hope that, one person, 10 people, 100, thousands of people will listen over time. What do you, as kind of two, as I said earlier on, rising stars in the startup space, in the sports betting startup space, what are some early learning lessons that you think others that may be considering a move into their own startup, that now being on the other side of it, having launched a business, that now that maybe you didn't realize or you underestimated going into it?
There's a lot of things.
You want to take that, or you want me to start off?
I think we both have stuff. I'm going to, yeah, Spencer, you start off.
Guys, give me no more than 2 or 3 things each.
I was going to say, John, how long you got? I think one thing is that it's certainly not a straight path. There's going to be highest of highs. There's going to be the lowest of lows, but just staying the course is key. I think people talk about consistency, and I think consistency is definitely not overrated. Just showing up, continue to put in the work, each and every day, and just kind of trying to stay level-headed. That's just kind of the key, because when you look back, the small efforts that happen over a day or even a week or even a month where it might not seem like things are moving forward, when you look back 6 months later, you see an app or you see a business or a company that's really progressed, leaps and bounds from where you were, simply just by showing up every day and, keep moving forward.
Yeah, we're not Amazon yet, so I can't come on here and say, here's how you do it, here's how you do it. But I would say, for us, the most important thing is just staying to your true self and your true identity. Just because you get funding or you get some clients or subscribers doesn't mean that you should just take other people's advice because they had done it before, because the odds are that they haven't done it in your niche and what you're trying to tackle. So while they want to help you, you always have to stay true to yourself and your gut and your team, and make the most responsible decisions for you. Don't only just lean on other people's, whether they be advisors or investors, for their influence, and just take whatever they say and run with it, because at the end of the day, it's your company. If you make the wrong decision, that's completely on you, regardless of who pushed you in that direction. So, stay true to yourself. The accomplishments you made had gotten you to that point, but staying, confident with your decisions and making those decisions on your own and your team is what will propel you further.
And at the end, no, great answers, guys. And I think when you're talking about doing something that you guys are doing, it really falls into this bucket of innovation, right? You're innovating a component of the sports betting industry. How do you deal when the product market fit is there or should be there, but like the traction may not reflect what should be happening? Just like, how do you balance those two things, product market fit and traction? Mentally.
After banging the head against the wall for about 3 minutes straight every other day. No, I think it's just kind of maintaining that positive outlook. And, I think one thing when you set out, it's like, okay, we're going to get there and the line's going to go straight up into the right, which is never the case. It's all just, incremental ups and downs, and just, starting to play a little bit more of the long game. I think getting into a startup, it always seems like it's a sprint. And in a lot of aspects, it can be. You're consistently pushing out new features, new products, new campaigns. But there is, in a sense, that it is a long game. An industry does need to mature a little bit. I mean, betting's been legal in the U.S. for 5 years. States haven't been even close to 5 years, where understanding that changing people's behavior can take time, and just kind of accepting that. There are larger forces at play, which is a tough thing to grasp at first, but it's a fact.
And when you think about the company, we're filming this in April of 2023, high level vision, a year from now, 3 years, 5 years from now, where do you see Alloy Sports going?
Yeah, I want to be on everyone's iPhone, and then hopefully we'll be on Google Play by then too. But we want to be the premier spot before anyone clicks on to FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, MGM, wherever you bet. We want you to come through our pipeline first, because if you do, you're going to be a more confident bettor. You're going to have that data and analytics behind your picks, but you're also going to be able to see that information like you would starting pitcher matchup. It's just that easy to access the data that we're mining in the back end. You're going to be able to digest it really easily, and you're going to win more bets when you're using these types of systems. You're not just going to throw money at it because you're going to a game or because you think one way or the other. You actually have strong data points that point you into a direction and win you money. Because at the end of the day, betting's fun, but it's more fun to win, especially when it comes to your money.
Well said. Well said. And in terms of like people listening to this episode, let's not overestimate how they should think about engaging with Alloy. What are you as a company looking for today from a partnership standpoint, from customers, investors? What is it that Alloy is seeking in the market?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're looking for people to get on the app. You know, download the app, give it a try. We have a 7-day free trial, then it's $20 a month. About a 33% discount if you sign up for the whole year. We've got NBA with our new version going live. NFL, we've got our old version, but the new version will be ready for NFL season as well. So give it a try, check it out. We've got a referral program. If you reach out to us and think you've got a nice base to push it forward, you know, we'll compensate for that as well. But we're excited to just get people on the app, subscribing, using it, and you know, winning more bets. That's why we started the company.
And I'll say this because I'm, you know, we're live for the NBA. Personally, I'm a big college basketball guy. Track the NBA, but I'm not devout every day, day in and day out. Using the app primarily for all of my bets. I bet on 40 games once we went live internally with the app after the NBA All-Star break. 27-13 record. I won 68%, and these are all against the spread. So I came out with about a 29% return on my investment. You know, I'm not tuned in day-to-day injuries on the NBA, and I'm winning at 68%, which elite, Spencer, you can confirm if I'm wrong, but I believe elite winning percentages for like professional sports bettors are like 55% on the win rate. So, yeah, you know, 60. I didn't have any tool that was different than what we're offering for $20 a month. One bet, this thing will pay for itself on a monthly basis.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, we're going to kind of wrap this episode with a little bit of a new segment that we're trying out called the Deep Dive Dash in honor of the School of Fish naming for this podcast. Because we typically are going to give 60 seconds, I'm going to bump it up to 90 seconds. We're going to do a back and forth. First question is for Brad, second for Spencer. I've got about 15, 20 questions. And I'd love to get your thoughts. And this is how we're going to wrap things. So, Brad, you're up first here.
All right, let's do it.
Deep Dive Dash. First version of it. What's one word that best describes your entrepreneurial journey?
Exciting.
Spencer, which book has had the greatest impact on your life?
Ooh.
Hurry up.
You get go one dog, pass.
Go dog, go.
Okay. Who wrote that book?
E.D. Eastman. You bet.
Okay.
Put me on the spot, John.
Okay.
Probably gonna say
they did not get these questions beforehand. Brad, what's your go-to productivity hack?
Ooh. I just go downstairs in my apartment complex, just lock myself in a room, and I get everything done.
All right. This is for both of you. This is a dual question. Spencer, you first. If you could have dinner with one historical sports figure, who would it be?
Ooh. Let's go Johnny Unitas.
Brad?
Let's go Naismith. I have a few questions about the early days of basketball.
Going backwards here. Brad, favorite sports team?
That's not fair. Ravens, Terps, and Orioles.
Spencer, same ones?
Same ones. Can't delineate.
Spencer, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Give me flying.
Flying, okay. Brad, best piece of advice you've ever received in life or business?
I think this one resonates pretty well. Middle school basketball coach, he said, you got 5 fouls, use them.
All right, we got 3 more here. Spencer, what's the most underrated quality in a leader?
Underrated quality, I think emotional intelligence.
Brad, if you could travel back in time, which decade would you visit?
I'd like to be a college kid in the 90s. That would have been fun.
All right. Last question for both of you. What's one app on your phone that you can't live without? And Alloy Sports is not an option.
I was going to say, set us up there, John. Alloy Sports. I'm pulling up my phone right now. Right now, I'll go Bleacher Report. My sports.
Because it's baseball season, it's fantasy on ESPN. I'm in that every hour.
Of course, sports apps.
Sports. It's all we do.
Predictions. This is not one of the pre-written questions, but who do you think is going to win the NBA championship this year? Last question.
Ooh. I'm going to say the Lakers. I'm going to go with an underdog here.
Give me. I was going to say that too. I'll go Boston.
Okay, we got Boston Lakers finals. We'll see which brother comes out on top. Guys, thanks for making the time. Hopefully, it wasn't too painful, and for participating in this new deep dive dash, which could be something. We could be on to something here. And how do people find you? Where Alloy Sports is in the Apple App Store?
Yeah, at Alloy Sports in the App Store. You can find us on social media at Alloy Sports, Twitter, Instagram. We've got a TikTok going, and we're just beginning our YouTube Shorts campaign. So definitely get on there for some good content.
Perfect. So I'm sure the world will be monitoring how things are going. I'm there to support you, as are others, and we're all rooting for you. And appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having us, John.
Later, guys.